Hello, I'm Sarah Markle, and this is my practicum log for school programs. I completed my practicum at the Early Childhood Center in Casper. The Early Childhood Center is located on Casper's campus, and I was in the toddler room with Miss Tara. The first day I went was September 16th, and I completed my practicum every Friday from 8 to about 10 or 10:30, depending on what was going on in the classroom. The first day I was there, I walked into the classroom and they were doing free play, so they got to play in all of the centers. And I noticed that a lot of them were very interested in dressing up because there was high heels, there was hats, there was necklaces that were provided. And I noticed that there was not a girl in the classroom at the time. There was girls in the classroom, just not when I was there. And I saw that most of the boys in the classroom were wearing high heels and necklaces, and the hats that were provided were, I would say, more intended for girls, but they were wearing them also. So I was very intrigued to know if they had sisters at home because I know when I was little, I used to play dress up with my brother and I would put makeup on him. So I was very interested to know if the reason they were doing this was because they did this at home or they just did not understand the dress options between girls and boys yet. So once free play was over, they had snack and they go wash their hands before they have snack and then they come and sit down. And the one thing that I really appreciated that Miss Tara did in the classroom was she had each of the kids fold their hands like they grasped their fingers together and they would say 1, 2, 3, thank you for our food. And a few times during the semester, they did it in Spanish actually. So I thought this was really great that she was integrating Spanish into the children's vocabulary. So they said their words. That's what they call it when they thank everyone for their food. And then they sat down and had snack. Once they were done with snack, they dumped their cups or their bowls, and then they threw away their leftover food. And then they brushed their teeth, so each of them had their own little toothbrush. And they had their name on them, and every day they wash them, but then they brush their teeth to a little toothbrush song that Miss Tara plays on her phone. And then we went outside because it was a really nice day outside, so we spent a lot of the first day outside. And they got to swing, they got to slide down the slides, they were able to run around, they were able to play in the dirt or ride the bicycles. There was many options for the children to do. Um, then each Friday I learned that they bake. So all the kids came inside and washed their hands again, and they were able to bake. And on the first day I was there, they baked muffins. So um, they each got to put in a different ingredient. Miss Tara would measure each of the ingredient out, and then she would give it to each of the kids, and they would get to dump it in the bowl. Once each of the ingredients were mixed up, they went into the kitchen and they put the muffin tin into the oven. And as the muffins were cooking, they had circle time. So I got to sit on a little of the circle time. They sang songs and then they read a book. So that completed my first day. So on the second day, I went in on September 23rd. Um, so I walked in on free play once again, and they were playing with a variety of things this time, not just the dramatic play items. Then they had snack, and they said their words, and then we went outside. And this day they went outside for a long time once again, and they rode bikes and ran around for most of the time. This day they were very full of energy, so Miss Tara wanted to do some like big motor or gross motor activities to get some of the energy out. So they started running around the playground, so I joined in and ran around with them to just invest in the time that I was there. And so we ran around for a little bit, and then once the children got tired, we stopped running. And I was very pleased and happy for myself that I did this because Miss Tara actually thanked me for running around with them because usually none of the observers will run around. They just sit there and observe. But I thought it'd be fun to interact with the kids and get to know them. I did notice when they were running that some of the kids um, were able to run better or had a better ability of running and staying up rather than falling to the ground. And I asked Miss Tara about this, and I wondered if it was their age at first, because I know the toddlers are, the youngest is over 1 year old, but the oldest is 3. So there's many different ages in the toddler room. So I was wondering if the older children were able to run better than the younger children just because of their size and the physical ability. But after talking to Miss Tara, I found out that the younger children and older children were mixed by their abilities, so it definitely wasn't the idea of the age affecting it. So I was maybe thinking back to parenting styles, if the children that were able to run longer and stay on their feet longer were the kids that invest most of their time outside. Because I know some parents love to take their children outside, and some parents are just busy with work or stuff inside, so their kids stay inside most of the time, which they wouldn't get practice running around. After running around and playing on the bikes, they came inside and washed their hands again and baked, because it was for Friday. And this day they were baking banana bread. So each of the students or the children were able to put in the different ingredients, and then they put it in the oven. And then I stayed long enough and we sang the usual songs. Some of the songs they sing every day are the Choo Choo Train song, so they get to learn each other's names, and then they sing the song in Spanish, which just includes a few basic Spanish words, so it kind of integrates Spanish into their language, which I really liked, and I hope to use this in my classroom one day. So the third day I went in was September 30th. It was on a Friday again, and I walked into them having free play, and then they had snack, of course, and brushed their teeth. This day it was very windy and cold outside, so they stayed inside and worked on fine motor at first and waited for it to warm up. So they did a lot of things with the little pinchers, the little tweezer deals to work on fine motor. They did a lot of color sorting, so they put they had these little colored bears, like the things you see as math manipulatives at an elementary school, and they would sort the different colors into muffin tins, so they worked on the pinching of their fingers. And then once it warmed up, we went outside and they got to do a bunch of gross motor activities, including sliding, playing on the bikes, running around. And then we came inside for circle time for just a little bit. And Miss Tara read them a book about butterflies. And this is the first time I actually saw the children's interest for bugs. And they were so interested in butterflies. I know for toddlers, their attention span is very limited, but they did sit for about 5 minutes listening to this butterfly book, so I got the idea of they have a very high interest in bugs. And then Miss Donna, which is the director of the Early Childhood Centers, came in and we did a new thing called a nature walk. And I asked Miss Tara if they do this a lot, and she said no, we just started doing it because we wanted to do some more observations of things that children wouldn't maybe get experience with at home, and just seeing if we can expand their vocabulary. So Donna thought of this thing to go out back, which the Early Childhood Center sits on kind of a hill, so it overlooks the whole town of Casper, which is very cool. And there's a bunch of sticks, and it's kind of like you're walking through the woods, but not too extensive. So this first day of doing it, they just kind of got a feel of it. So at this point, it was September, so the leaves were changing colors. So the biggest thing they focused on was the leaves changing colors, and they were able to notice the different colors. And we each, before we went outside, we each got a little clipboard and some paper. So each of us were able to write down vocabulary that we heard, things that the children were doing. And I thought this was very effective because as the main teacher, they're busy with doing their own observations, but it's great to see other people's point of view and to see what other people have been hearing, because there was 8 children, so that's a lot of observation to do for just one teacher. So we did this nature walk. We walked around the Early Childhood Center, and then there's little apartments next to them, so we walked around the apartments as well to look at the different leaves and then what was on the leaves, and we were able to observe the different things. So I thought this was very cool and very interesting to see, and the children really liked it. It was something different than what they're used to doing. So the next time I went into the classroom was October 7th, and I logged in on free play, and this is the first time during snack I actually saw a parent come in. I usually did not see parents because they were usually all dropped off by now, or I left before the rest of the children came in. So I was able to see kind of one of the family dynamics, and I learned that this certain child's parents were in the school system, so they were dropping off their kids before they went to school, which was very interesting to see their love and affection for their child, because sometimes you don't see that as a parent, but you could tell that the child appreciated them very much and loved their parents, and he did not cry, and I think this was because it was more into the semester rather than the beginning of the semester, so that was great to see. So they had snack. This is when the parent came, and they brushed their teeth, and then we went outside to do more gross motor, and today they had very high energy. So we had them go outside and run around to get their energy out before we went on another nature walk. So they were able to run around and get all their jitters out, so they were able to pay attention and listen during the nature walk. This nature walk that we did the second time was mainly focused on what kind of bigger objects that the students could find. So they were able to pick up branches, sticks, a lot of them picked up rocks, and they thought a lot of the dirt clods are rocks, which I thought was interesting, which you would think that. But then one little boy handed me this dirt clod, and I said, "Do you think this is rock or dirt?" And I was able to crumble it in my hand, and he had an aha moment and was like, "Oh, it is a dirt clod, not a rock." So he was able to see the difference between a dirt clod and a rock, which I thought was very interesting. And then he was also able to get the vocabulary also. This nature walk wasn't as long as the first one, because after a while the children kind of got bored with just finding certain things, and then they found them and then had to set them down, so they didn't even get to keep them. And then we went inside and baked for a little bit. I left early during baking because they weren't finished, and it was about time for them to have lunch, so they were kind of in a hurry. So the next time I went in was October 14th, and this time it was cool to see because they were doing puzzles instead of free time. So Miss Tara had a bunch of puzzles laid out, and they were doing puzzles instead of picking and choosing which center they want to play at. I was very surprised to see how well toddlers were able to put together a puzzle. I did not think that they were able to put higher level puzzles together, but a lot of them loved puzzles and loved doing the puzzles, and they were very good at it. They needed little assistance, and they were able to turn the puzzles around to make them fit into pieces, which I thought was a very high fine motor skill at this age. And I wondered if Miss Tara brought out puzzles a lot because they were just so good at them, and she said they love puzzles, so she brings them out every once in a while, and puzzles is one of the center times available to them. So once they were done with puzzles, they had snack and brushed their teeth, and then we went outside and did gross motor, so they were able to run around and play on bikes, and I was actually able to see them play with the kitchens outside, which was kind of cool because they are very creative, and they had old pots and pans, and then they used the dirt as their food, so they would say things to me like, "Do you want some coffee?" And then they would fill their cup or their pan with dirt and rocks, and then they would hand it to me like it was fake food. So I thought that was pretty cool to see how creative they are. And then we went inside to bake, and then we had circle time, And during circle time, we mainly sang songs this time, but then towards the end of circle time, we danced. And I thought this was very exciting and very fun in the classroom. The children actually liked it, even though the classroom was full of all boys this day also. It was very surprising to me to see the interest of boys in dancing, because I know most boys don't invest their time in dancing and don't enjoy it, but these boys loved to dance, which I thought was very cool. So the next day I went in was October 27th, and I walked in on free play and then snack, and then they brushed their teeth, and then we went outside to have gross motor activity. Then we baked, of course. And then I was actually able to see center time for the first time. And this was very interesting to see, and I've been wanting to see this entire semester. I just wasn't able to stay to watch center time, but she did it early this time, so I was able to see it. I loved how she set out the different centers in her classroom. She has everything labeled, which is very nice to have, and for the children to see what each thing is. And each center is in its own little area, and she does not have any room for like running, because her classroom is mostly boys, so boys have a lot more energy than girls, so they didn't run around at all, which I thought was great. And then each child moved around a lot. I noticed a lot of the children didn't sit at one center for very long, and they moved around a lot, which was nice because Miss Tara had a lot available for these kids. And then one thing that I did notice during center time is when it was almost time for them to clean up, she gave them a warning, and she would say, 5 minutes, boys and girls, until we need to clean up. And I thought this was great, because sometimes it messes little kids up when you just tell them to clean up all of a sudden because they're not ready. So giving them a warning, they were able to just clean up, and they didn't complain about not having enough time. So I thought this was great. So the next time I went was November 4th. And this was just a typical day again. It was nothing special. I was able to watch them free play, snack, brushing teeth, outside time. They were able to do whatever this day. So it wasn't just intended for gross motor. It was intended for, they could do fine motor with picking up sticks or rocks in the ground, or a lot of big movements outside also. I was able to see them bake again, and one thing about their baking I noticed is some of the kids were able to mix the ingredients or put the ingredients in the bowl more advanced than the others, and this made me wonder if some of the students were able to bake at home with their mom or their grandma or their dad or whoever. So I would ask each child during baking, I would say, do you do this at home, or do you do this with mom, if I knew the family dynamics of the family. And some of them would say, yeah, I cook with my mom, or just, nod their head. So I was able to see which children do this at home, and you could definitely tell this in the classroom, because they were able to dump the ingredients without getting it on the table, or they would know the names of some of the ingredients, and it was just really cool to see. So the next day I went in was November 11th, and this is the day I taught my first lesson. So my first lesson was the bug fossils. So they started out with the day with free play, snack, brush their teeth, and we actually had another nature walk this day. So this day they were able to gather up sticks and rocks or whatever they found outside, and then they actually got to collect them this time. So the children were far more interested in this rather than picking it up and then setting it down. So they picked it up, and then there was different baskets that the teachers had, and they put the objects that they found in the baskets, and then when they got inside, they actually painted them. So there was orange, yellow, brown, greens, like autumn colors for them, and they were able to paint the different things that they found outside, which they love this. it was just so different from painting anything else that they usually do, because they usually only paint on paper, Miss Tara told me. And then once it dried, they were able to go back and look at what they painted. So it was interesting to see what the colors they picked for each of the objects that they found. And then I taught my lesson, so I had Play-Doh on the table and then insects. And most of them were able to actually push the insect into the Play-Doh to make a fossil. And most of the kids stayed at the station for a very long time. The other centers were also open, so if they were not liking my center or were just getting tired of it, they were able to go to the other centers. But for the most part, the students were able to pick out like the body, the antennas, the legs, just little parts of the bugs that they recognized. And then they were also able to name the bugs, which I thought was very cool. And it made me appreciate the topic I picked because it was correlating very well to what they were doing in the classroom. So the next day I went in was November 18th, and it was a typical morning, and then we had a nature walk again. And this time they had a box of crayons, markers, and colored pencils, and the colors were all kind of nature colors, so browns and greens and colors like that. And they had to go outside and find things outside that matched with the colors of the colored pencils or markers, whatever the teacher had. So they would pick up an object and then be asked what marker fits with this, and they were able to match the colors. I think it would have been more beneficial if there were different colors, because a lot of the times the object did not match the color of the colored pencil or marker, which I think confused the children, because I don't think they really got a lot out of this nature walk. Personally, they were able to see the many different colors of things that there is in nature, but they weren't able to put the matching colors and objects together very well because of the colors that were provided. So then we went inside, and they actually had a fire drill. It was just a practice, and so Miss Tara kind of sat them down beforehand and warned them that there was going to be a loud buzzer go off in a little bit. So don't be alarmed. It's just practice. And then she kind of reviewed what they're supposed to do once their fire drill happens. And a lot of the kids were able to tell her what they were supposed to do. So a lot of the older kids who have experienced this before said we walk outside and we don't get scared and we sit in the sandbox until Miss Donna tells us to come back in, which I thought was really cool that they were able to practice this and that it stuck in their brain. So that was pretty cool to see. So we had the fire drill, and no one really got scared, which surprised me because the siren was pretty loud. But then they sat in the sandbox until Miss Donna was able to get a head count, and then we came back inside. And then we washed our hands and then baked. So that was the end of that day. The next day I went in was December 2nd, and this is the day I taught my second lesson. So the morning was as usual, free play, snack, brush your teeth, and then we did have a nature walk, and this is the first time we actually had snow this year. So it was perfect timing to look at the different footprints in the snow. So we got the kids bundled up, and I realized how much time bundling up 8 children takes. So it's kind of a bummer that takes a lot of learning time out of the day, but you also don't want the kids getting sick. So we were able to bundle up all the kids, and there was about 5 teachers in the classroom that were helping with this. So, I mean, it didn't take that long, but it's still taking time out of learning for the children. So we went outside and we had them look for different footprints. None of the children were able to tell us what kind of footprints were in the snow. Like, they weren't able to tell us, oh, that's a deer footprint. We would have to end up telling them. But they were able to see the different footprints in the snow. They could tell a boot footprint from an animal footprint, which was really cool to see that they were able to see this. And then we came inside because it was kind of cold outside and they were getting cold. So then I taught my second lesson, and the other centers were open, but I had my little frog cans out with the mouth cut out, and then had the little tweezers and then some insects. So they were able to put the insect into the mouth and count how many times. And most of the kids were able to count to 5. Some of the older kids were able to count to 10, which I thought was really cool to see. A lot of the kids would start at 1, 2, 3, and then they would just say a random number, which is, I think is pretty normal to see in a toddler classroom. But they were able to name the bugs, and some of the bugs were actually too big to fit into the can, which a lot of the students were able to recognize, which I thought was pretty cool. So that completed that day. That lesson took for a little bit, and then they were able to play in other centers. So my very last day in the classroom was the 9th of December, and this is a normal day, normal morning. We had free play, snack, brush the teeth, and Miss Tara actually wasn't there my last day. She had a training to go to, so the assistant, Miss Christie, was in the classroom, and I was wondering if the students would act different without Miss Tara in the classroom, but it was a very good day. They did not act out of hand or act any different without Miss Tara in the classroom, so I thought that was pretty cool to see. So we had free play and snack, and we actually had 2 of the infants in our classroom today, and they were older infants. They were about to transition into the toddler room, so they were a bit smaller, but it was just very interesting to see the difference from an already transitioned toddler to a toddler that's about to transition. There's such a huge difference that you don't really realize until you actually see it. So we brushed our teeth, and then I actually taught my 3rd lesson, and they loved this lesson. I put the worms in dirt, and I put my little container on the table, and they love seeing this. They love playing with it, and I'm glad that I actually provided popsicle sticks because none of the children in the class wanted to pick up the worms. The only people that picked up the worms with their hands were the teachers. So they did not like the feel of the worms, which I thought was really interesting because, once again, this class is full of boys. So I thought they would just love touching worms, but they hated it. One of the teachers would try to get them to touch it, and she would grab a worm and put it on their hand, and they would freak out. A couple of them started crying, so they absolutely hated it. But they loved playing with the worms with the popsicle sticks without touching them. So a lot of them would get them out and then put them on the table, which I thought was pretty cool. And then most of them actually stayed at the center for the whole center time, but then some of them were getting a little bored or they didn't really like the worms, so they went to other centers. So I thought it was cool, and I was glad my lesson went really well. And Miss Tara or Miss Christie actually kept the worms in the classroom for this last week during finals week for them to play with because they loved them so much, which I thought was pretty cool because I did not know what I was supposed to do with the worms afterwards. So it was nice that they got put to use. So that was my practicum experience, and I had a great experience in the toddler class.